Our devotion on the epistle, again this week, is from 2 Corinthians. And here, Paul is talking about all sorts of visions and different experiences that he's been having. And he talks about boasting in all these things. So there's a lot of things, actually. We don't know exactly what Paul means by some of these things. And much of it is too much to get into for this video. But I do want to focus on the idea of weaknesses. Paul talks about that he would boast in his weaknesses, that he would be content in his weaknesses, because that's where God's power is made perfect, in his weakness. We don't like to talk about weaknesses very much. We'd rather focus on our strengths, the things that we're good at. But here Paul is talking about weaknesses, that in our weaknesses, God's power is made perfect. So we boast in our weaknesses. It makes me think of baptism. Here there's this beautiful baptismal font behind me. And for many of us, we come to Christ through baptism as a baby. What could be more weak and helpless than this little baby who comes to the baptismal font, and God makes that child his own through baptism? God blesses us and welcomes us into his family as his children in baptism. In our weakest moment, God claims us to be his own. God claims us in his love. So it is indeed in our weakness that God's power is made perfect, and that continues throughout our lives. That in all of our times of weakness and our times of struggle, God's power is made perfect. Therefore, not only can we take comfort in these times of weakness, but we can even boast in them, that in our weaknesses, this is where God is glorified. This is where God's power is made perfect. Now, does that mean that we should just continue to be weak and helpless and really pathetic in all things? No, of course not. We work very hard for the kingdom, but it's God's Spirit that is working in and through us, even in our weaknesses, in order that God would be glorified in all things. It's in our weaknesses that his power is perfected in us. God's blessings to you this week.